scary podcast. Well, it better be Guide to the Unknown.
Hello, welcome to Guide to the Unknown. I'm Kristen.
And I'm her little brother, William.
And this week we're talking about the Phantasm franchise. This is a set of movies that are horror, but also, at least as you get into the fifth movie, I would say more like sci-fi action.
It is a very bizarre trajectory. It starts like a lot in sort of horror surrealism.
Yeah.
You know?
The first one.
Yeah. And certainly the further that it goes, it gets into a very Evil Dead place, but then with drips and drabs, of like Terminator.
Yeah.
Of like we're in the apocalypse and we're fighting a monster with, we've got like what are those bullet belts that like Chewbacca wears?
Is it called like a bandolero? Am I
yeah,
crazy?
Something like that. I don't know. But yeah, Phantasm. We are going to attempt to discuss Phantasm in this episode.
We'll do our best.
All thanks to the suggestion of one of our listeners, Chris. So thank you, Chris. This one's for you.
Yep.
I don't know if you'll enjoy this or if you're going to be like, I have
no
idea. I don't know if anybody's going to, or is anyone going to walk away from this episode being like, oh, I get it now.
Now I understand Phantasm. I mean, I'm going to leave us on the last movie.
Yeah.
And if that's any indication, I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to satisfactorily wrap this up for you, I hate to say. Not for lack of trying.
Sure. I almost think that the act of talking about Phantasm is going to be somewhat as cumbersome, non-linear, and trippy as the movies themselves.
Perhaps we'll work it out.
Maybe.
Through conversation.
We'll find out. I did watch all 5 of these movies for the purposes of this show.
Right.
I think that is the most movies I've ever watched for a single episode ever.
Maybe.
I think. But you watched 1 and 5.
Right.
Which are the bookends.
Yes.
So I want to ask you.
What?
I want to ask you what you think this is about. If you like it, and if you would want to see 2, 3, and 4, if you have any curiosity about digging into that middle chunk.
Okay, I'm gonna save what this is about for when I go into the first movie description and everything.
Well, not the literal plot, but like what's
it about? Yeah, so it's about this guy, like entity thing, called the Tall Man, who comes to Earth from another world or dimension or something like that, and is taking dead bodies and smushing them down,
turning them into little people.
Turning them into little people, and then sending those little people back to his dimension to become slaves.
Yes, that appears to be his plot.
And so, we have protagonists who are trying to stop him. So I guess that's basically. And if you try to stop him, he has these like sentinel things that come after you, which are these like steel orbs that have, what would you call them? I don't know, like blades?
Yeah,
that come out of them.
Yeah.
And so they lodge into you and then shoot all of your blood out of a hole that's in the ball.
It's literally like a Christmas tree ornament, a silver ball latches onto your face, drills into your brain, and siphons all your blood out.
Right.
But just sprays it out the back end.
And
just shoots it across the room.
End?
To kill you?
I know. It just seems, I don't know, more elaborate than necessary to kill you.
100%. But it's cool looking.
Yes, totally. I mean, that's what it is. But
Phantasm is a franchise that lives or dies by how much you enjoy its iconography.
I think that's got to be true.
That's it. Because the story doesn't make sense.
Right.
The franchise trajectory is bizarre. Episode 1. Like it's Star Wars or like a TV show. The first movie, there's a character named Reggie who drives an ice cream truck.
Yep.
He is like a side character in the first movie. By the time you get to the end of this franchise, he is the main character.
Oh, yeah. He's the guy.
He is Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead. We are supposed to think that he is charming and hilarious.
Yeah, and kind of kooky.
Yeah. But this all has a feeling of it being like a low-budget indie film. And again, it seems to live or die based on like, do you like the silver balls? Do you like the tall man? Do you love Reggie?
And guess what? I do like the silver balls, and I do like the tall man.
Me too. So do I.
Reggie, I like.
Reggie, I'm more sort of like curious about.
He's fine.
I watch him and I was just sort of like
I feel like he really stumbled into something.
Yes, 100%. I look at him and I think like he must feel like the luckiest man on the planet that he is the star of 5 movies.
Right.
And good for him.
Absolutely.
I think that he's enjoyable enough to watch.
Yeah.
But
you know, like,
they do act like he has the charisma of Bruce Campbell.
Like, Bruce Campbell is like, this is what this guy is supposed to be doing. This all feels right. This feels like a real person who stepped off the street and they started filming him and it just happened to work out.
He picked a lane and he's stuck with it.
Right.
He goes, groovy. Who loves you, baby?
Right.
And he goes, this is my boomstick. Like, he's big and wacky, does pratfalls. Everything is Looney Tunes, and he excels at it.
Yes.
And then Reggie in the Phantasm series is like, they went, well, he can't do all that, but he can do some of his own stunts. And we'll at least let him be kind of a weird horn dog.
Right. So he has that part.
He has the
of Bruce Campbell's character,
but none of the
pat.
charisma.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Yeah.
He's got a CUDA.
Yes, he's got the car.
Right.
The cool
so
car.
He's got kind of like a muscle car sort of thing
Which
going on.
Ash sort of does
That's
too.
what I'm saying.
Especially in the TV show Ash versus the Evil Dead. But so I wrote this note, and I'll probably say a version of this again at the end. This entire franchise, it's about like dreams and trippiness. The name Phantasm means nightmare. And so similar to Freddy Krueger and A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original movie, the most, seems to posit like, by the time the credits roll, you're almost meant to think, maybe none of this happened.
Yeah.
Maybe none of what we actually saw really happened for real, and it was a nightmare that a character had. And so they do a lot of this like toying with, did X really happen or did Y actually happen? Is this real or is this imagined? Is this a nightmare or is this the waking life? They do all of this guessing game type stuff throughout all 5 movies. And eventually I wrote it down as this. It's almost as if this entire franchise is constructed around dreams and confusion so that poor storytelling can be explained as being intentional.
Yeah, maybe it all can be excused away.
If you don't,
it's like an escape hatch.
It is. If you don't get it, that's the point.
Right.
So in that way, Phantasm is almost criticism proof.
Yeah.
Because it's almost constructed to be like, well, we can always say, you don't get it. There was a dream. You're not supposed to understand.
Right.
But it leaves me, having watched 5 movies where the line is blurred between all 5. I presently, sitting here with you, I cannot tell you what happens in 3 versus 4. I don't know anymore.
Your whole life has become Phantasm.
It has. It is all mushed into one congealed blob. Right. And I kind of liked it. And I kind of am uninterested in it.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a lot to talk about. But it does seem to all be constructed as an excuse.
It could be, but you know what? I don't think that it's criticism proof.
Okay.
Because a criticism that I would have for it that you can't really argue any of that away with is that at least the 5th movie in particular, I was bored.
Yeah, being bored is bad.
Yeah, that's not something that you can really like justify away.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Being bored and being confused are 2 incredibly different things. At a certain point,
and they did bleed into each other a little bit. Like I was confused, and that sort of led to boredom because I was confused, and I was like, but I don't really care either.
Yes.
So
they can only play that one joke of being like, is he awake or is he asleep?
Oh, I know.
So many times before you go awake, asleep. I don't care.
I'm asleep.
I'm checking out.
Right.
But let's get into it. We'll start at the beginning here. Phantasm 1979.
Right. Well, also you asked if I have any desire to go back.
That's right, yeah.
I don't.
Really? You can just walk away from this?
Absolutely.
Full stop?
Yeah, completely.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really hard for me to stay engaged with the 5th movie. Like, really hard.
I can get that.
So, no, I don't particularly want to. And yeah, so what's the best way to do this so that I can try to fill in the gaps of what happens in between. You can help me.
I
I'll
think
obviously talk about the first one.
yeah.
And then I guess, do we just jump to 5, or is that annoying for everybody?
I think 1 and 5. Honestly, having seen all 5, 1 and 5, I genuinely think that you can probably watch in a vacuum and get just as much as if you did see 2, 3, and 4.
I think I wasn't really that confused. I mean, I kind of, there were a couple of things where I was like, what? But they do sort of have a little bit of exposition.
Yeah, well,
and you can figure it out anyway. I was just like, okay, so this guy's been battling the tall man in some way for like 1,000,000 years now.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad to hear you say that, because at least the movies then are constructed the way that movies probably should be. Sequels probably should be, of like, they give you enough context that you can go for the ride, even if maybe you hadn't even seen the first one at all.
Yeah.
Like, nobody wants to start with Phantasm 5 Ravager.
Probably not.
Right? But if you did, the movie probably should give you enough context.
I don't know that it would,
No?
to tell you the truth. I think it helped that I had seen Phantasm 1, because I'm really not sure otherwise. I mean, the tall man talking to Reggie would be like, Reggie'd say like, I want my family and my friends back or whatever. So
The
I
family
guess,
thing is so funny.
Yeah, I don't really.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah,
I think
I
all
obviously...
we can do is, let's start with 1. We'll jump to 5, and if I can fill in gaps,
okay,
I will. And then I'll do a cruise through and see if I have any lingering points that I feel need to be made for the official record.
Okay, that's
Yeah?
a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this definitely feels like the kind of thing where I might fill in, like, might be like, oh, I should have said this, and I'll put it on our Instagram or our TikTok or something like that throughout the week.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what the plot of Phantasm, the original, is like. Like Will said, it came out in 1979. It's like a super low budget movie. I'm thinking about like the feel of it right now. I do really like a lot of the visuals in the movie. Like, there are a lot of really cool looking things. A lot of the main action takes place in a mausoleum. That's really neat looking. And so I appreciate that. Especially in the mausoleum, it'll be like very white, and then with like splashes of color, which is really fun. And it's a tight movie, which I appreciate.
Yeah,
it's like an hour
short.
and a half long, so that's always good. And
you see, Saturday Night Live took our short movies thing.
Yes,
They
I
did.
did see that. And
Yeah.
you know what? They're absolutely right.
They clearly
obviously.
must be watching this.
They're
program.
obviously fans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Bowen.
Hey.
Yeah. I would die. But yeah, so before I even go into it, I will say I actually do recommend Phantasm, the first one.
I like Phantasm, yeah.
I like it. I don't love it, but
Yes.
I do like it.
Uh-huh.
And so I think it's worth a look. It's short enough. There are a lot of, like I said, just cool looking things in it. It's just bizarre, where you're like, what the hell is happening? But in a pleasant way.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And not what the hell is happening as in what's going on with this plot. It's just like, what is this crazy movie? What am I looking at?
Yes.
And that's fun. So the basic thing is that there is a brother team named Jody and Mike, and they go to a funeral home because they think that their friend killed himself, their friend Tommy. But we know that he was stabbed by a sexy lady.
Now, what did you think of this? Because this is incredibly bizarre and surreal.
Uh-huh.
Her name, the sexy lady, she's the lady in lavender.
Yeah.
And she is another shape of the tall man.
Right.
So, but she'll seduce people to like lure them in so that the tall man can basically kill them.
Yes.
So is the tall man celebrating with these victims?
Yes, I think so.
And why does it need to go so far as full-blown celebration?
I don't know. I don't know. I think that's a great question.
It sure seems like once he just gets them alone,
That's all you would need.
he could just kill them. But he goes to the full extreme of having sex
He clearly enjoys the party.
as the lady in lavender.
Right. I don't know. He must be into it, because you're absolutely right. As long as you got him alone, if your only objective is to kill them,
Right.
mission accomplished. But no, they're like making out and having sex.
Is there another level of enjoyment the tall man gets out of all of this by being like, all right, I've lured you in. I had sex with you as a pretty lady, and in front of your eyes, I will turn back into the tall man as you die.
Maybe, because that has got to be a mind
That's
F
got to be
on another level.
A big shockaroo.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, perhaps.
And also, by
that's
the
just
way,
for his personal fun.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We should say spoilers for everything. I'm even going to spoil something here, even though we're talking about the first Phantasm.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see it is going to be non-linear. I think the only thing to do is just talk about stuff and we'll bounce around.
That's fine.
It will eventually be confirmed later in the franchise that the tall man was once just a normal human.
Oh.
That's in like 3 and 4.
Okay.
They confirm that he is a guy, a scientist named Jedediah Morningstar.
Okay.
And he created the ability to go between dimensions.
I also know what's
Almost
going
like
on in that dimension.
I have no idea what's going on in the other dimension.
Because you
no
really
idea.
are just seeing the little people in their hoods.
Yes.
Just kind of like walking in lines.
Yes. This is
I don't even know what they're doing for the other beings.
I have no idea.
I don't think we've seen the other beings. Like, what is their job over there?
Listen.
What is its mission?
We don't have a mission statement.
Right.
But also, who's to say that this franchise is done, by the way?
It might, yeah, totally.
Because the most recent movie came out 4 years ago and has everybody from the 1979 original in it. So even though the man who plays the tall man, Angus Scrim, has since passed away, I really would not be shocked if it turned out that the creators, like Reggie and Don Coscarelli, the creator, director, writer, if they're like, yeah, we made another for fun, and here it is. And they do explain something. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is there is another dimension that the tall man seems to be a god of almost.
Yeah.
And so he weaponizes these dead bodies. He deliberately shrinks them to be this. So he'll do this to your parents.
Right.
We see this in Phantasm 1. He takes Jody and Mike's parents and shrinks them to be the size of little people.
Yep.
To be like 3-4 feet tall.
Right.
And then he will bring them to the other world to do something. I don't know. But in Phantasm 3 or 4, we're introduced to Jedediah Morningstar, who's like a Thomas Edison-esque inventor.
Yeah.
And he has invented the portal that will then bring him to the other side. So it's almost like as a human, he was experimenting with dimensional travel. He calls it like the fork, the dimensional fork. So he created this thing. Maybe he had it. We don't get enough to know, like, did he have a theory that it was like, I believe there were other worlds and I'll be able to travel to them and I'll become a god and I'll shrink corpses. Like, we don't know what his deal was. He seemed to be a nice man. So I have to assume it's like the pursuit of science
drove him mad.
Yes. Or is a like careful what you wish for kind of thing. Like, congratulations, Jedediah. You opened that door, but by doing so, you have stripped yourself of your humanity and become a monster.
Right.
I don't know. But the
it's
fact of the matter,
that you don't know.
It's insane that they never tell you this.
Right.
It's insane that they spent 40 years making these movies without answering that question.
Yeah.
Or what he's doing or what he wants. We don't know we know his small wants.
Right.
We know his, like, he wants to kill you. He wants to kidnap you. He wants to make corpses into little minions. But we don't know why. We don't know the big want. What is his goal?
It's also strange that they would go as far as showing you that he was a scientist and everything, but then not go all the way with it and explain all these other things.
100%. Especially
if anything,
because
they should have just left it be then, and he's just a completely mysterious entity who we don't know whether they're human or not.
Kristen, I could not agree more.
Like, why even introduce it then?
The reason I even took us on this tangent is because somehow Jedediah Morningstar inventing his steam-powered dimensional fork thing opens that door and gets to a point in his life where he's like, it's logical for me to transform into a beautiful lady,
right?
Seduce these guys and have sex with them as a lady to kill them,
right?
And transform back into myself, an old man,
yes,
as they die.
Yeah,
it's like I just don't understand.
What is his motivation?
I don't understand the internal. Like, okay, that's what he's doing,
but why is he doing that?
That's the deal. What's the deal, tall man?
I think that we can only assume what we've already said is that he enjoys the sex, so there's no reason to have it
Right.
otherwise. And then he enjoys them seeing that he's actually an old man when they're dying instead of a hot lady in lavender.
You know what I want? I want Phantasm 6, you know, Rise of the Villager or something like that.
Yeah.
Because all of them, 5 is Ravager because there's a V. So you
Yep.
have to have VI here somewhere.
True, yes.
So Rise of the Villager doesn't matter.
No, lady in lavender.
Yeah, they misspell lavender so that it's VI for 6. Perfect. Lady in lavender.
I didn't even think that. I
Yes.
forgot. Yeah.
And somebody goes, why? Now, why did you do that? And they push in slow on him and he goes, I like it.
I like it. Yeah.
That's it. That's good
Yeah,
enough.
and you're like, okay.
Okay, very well.
Honestly?
I want to.
Question answered.
You know?
Yeah, like
Whatever.
Walter White.
Yeah, exactly.
I did it for me.
Yes.
I liked it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So we know that Tommy was killed by the lady in lavender, but they think that Tommy must have killed himself. And during the course of the funeral, Mike, who's the younger of this brother team, I don't know why I keep calling brother team, but this
Control F brother team all over your notes.
I don't know why.
So brother team.
Yeah.
BT goes investigating.
May as well, because they are doing that a lot. But the brother team is Mike and Jody. The younger one is Mike.
Yeah.
And at the funeral, Mike sees the tall man with Tommy's casket, and he picks it up like it weighs nothing,
Oh, it's
and
dope.
just it's totally awesome, and puts it in the hearse. And Mike is like, "What the hell?"
The tall
whatever.
man basically like lifts an entire casket under one arm.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. Like
Yeah, it's
watching the
great.
movie this time to like take notes and do a show. I was like, this is like classic sort of Rear Window-esque.
Yeah, because he is peeping at everybody the whole time.
Yeah,
Mike.
and he's seeing things that he shouldn't see.
Right.
And trying to fill in the blanks of like, what the hell can this possibly mean?
Yeah.
And it being somebody who works at a morgue.
Mm-hmm.
It's all just like, it's such a great setup and such
Yeah.
like a fun, like, I'm so sorry to use this word. It's like such a good flavor of horror of like scary guy who works, who runs a funeral home.
Yeah, it's classic.
It's classic, but I can't point to a million instances of it necessarily.
It feels classic,
It
though.
just-
like you're
yeah.
freaked out by funeral homes or whatever.
It's just
you know?
perfect.
Yeah, it's awesome. So he sees that and is like, what the hell is this? Then later on, we see Jody, so the older brother, meet the lady in lavender at a bar. And she's like, oh, want to go hook up or whatever?
So he's
And,
just
like-
at a bar having a drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And meets Lady in Lavender, who's like, let's go hook up in the cemetery. It'll be exciting or
So
whatever.
he almost had to lift that casket with one arm to save time so that he could knock off early and go hang out at
Yes.
the bar cruising for Jody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Would he have gone with anybody or did he want Jody?
I kind of think he would have gone with anybody. Because it doesn't seem like there's anything, unless there is in the later movies, that's like specific about Jody and Mike that you would really want to go after them.
There's something specific about Mike, although it remains unclear to me even now.
Okay.
Unfortunately, 'cause they make such a big deal out of Mike.
Yeah.
But isn't it weird that the tall man's also actively murdering? He runs a funeral home. He gets their
is
dead bodies
weird.
all
They'll
over the
come in.
place. Why does he need to kill as well?
You're absolutely right. And also,
I like it.
I guess it's just, I like it.
Yeah.
He also, so not only does he like shrink or smush the dead bodies into little people, he puts them in barrels and like stockpiles them.
Yeah.
I also don't understand why he's not just sending them through the fork thing, the forks to the
Yeah.
other dimension like all the time.
Maybe he needs them to like cure.
Pickle,
Yeah, it's a pickle.
maybe.
I've got some pickled minis. Can't wait to send them through.
It must be something like that, but
Yeah.
it's not explained in the first one.
Siri, remind me to check on my pickled minis before I go traveling about the dimensions.
Yeah, it must be that. Otherwise, why not just shoot them on through constantly?
Yeah.
There's probably, and in barrels, you're right, there's probably liquid. There's probably
Right.
sloshing.
We see him working on one in I
Uh-huh.
think 3 or 4. Again,
Okay.
I don't know the difference between them anymore.
Right.
So don't also expect precision from me, even though
Right.
I've seen all these. I don't
Oh,
remember where
nor
they
I.
begin or stop anymore.
Ever.
Ever.
Yeah.
So we see him work on them, but he's like working on one of them on like a mortuary slab.
Uh-huh.
So it's not all wet and juicy. But he does put him in a barrel, which does imply some liquid, yeah.
Yeah, because why else?
I don't know.
Yeah. They have to cure.
And there's a reanimation process that must happen. Why do they got to be small?
I really don't know. I mean, I was honestly wondering if they have to be small because he knows he's going to put a whole bunch of them in a room and it's like more space efficient.
Oh, is that? I mean, it is fun visually that he's the tall man and he's got
actually, I hadn't thought about that.
Shorter henchmen.
Right.
In a sense. Like that is kind of enjoyable.
Right. He also doesn't seem that tall to me.
He's not.
Right?
He's
Doesn't
also
he just
wearing
look
lifts.
Like an average. Oh, really?
Angus
he kind of just looks like normal height to me.
No, but it's a
totally
great
fine.
spooky name.
Exactly. I'm totally fine calling him the tall man.
Yeah.
But I don't find him a particularly tall man.
I know. He's not like super thin.
No.
Or anything.
I
It's
mean,
like an
he's pretty
average. He's thin, but
Yeah,
it's not
but
like
not
it's not like in a way that emphasizes how tall he is or
Right.
something. But he's got a great way of walking.
Yeah.
The way he carries himself. He's got this long stride.
Mm-hmm.
And they love to shoot him in slow motion.
Yeah.
So it all just
Like
takes
coming
on
down a
this
hall.
added weight of drama. So like I don't know. I really do. Again, it's this is a franchise that's about the icons,
Mm-hmm.
and I do really like the Tall Man.
Yeah.
I do.
I do too. The tall man's good. So, so the Lady in Lavender and Jody are hooking up in a cemetery. He's like, isn't this kind of creepy? And she's like, I think it's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Mike is following Jody.
I don't know.
I don't really know why, but he like followed him to the bar and then he's following with the lady and he's like, whoa, boobs or
Yeah.
whatever. But I'm like, ew, but it's with your brother.
It's with your brother. Yeah,
Gross.
I know.
So he's like peeping in the bushes, and then one of the shrunken people in a little like hood and cape kind of like comes by and scares him, and so he comes flying out of the bushes like ah, and so then Jody sees that and it's like, Mike, what the hell? So it kind of breaks up the canoodling with the Lady in Lavender.
Yes.
So saving Jody inadvertently.
Yes.
Basically.
Lavender balls.
He gives him lavender balls.
Sorry.
No, thank you.
While we're on those
Oh,
little
God.
guys,
Yeah.
they're in little brown robes.
Yeah. They look
1970
like Ewoks.
Jawas.
Oh, okay, Jawas.
Come on.
Excuse me.
Pissing me off. I corrected you on that so fast, like I really was like,
Yeah.
Kristen,
Jawas.
Ewoks.
Yeah.
What the hell? Like I was.
Are you kidding me?
Are you serious with this? So anyway, the Jawas in Star Wars would have first been seen in 1977, and then we've got now these creatures which are identical.
They look just like them.
And there's like.
I feel like they make a little sound
They
too,
do.
like them.
There's like an explanation where they're like, we didn't know. Well, I swear to God, we didn't know. But like, there's a lot of
But
theorizing.
Star
People are like,
Wars.
we think you knew.
Well, Star
Not that
Wars
it matters. Who cares?
Doesn't really, but Star Wars is so humongous. It seems hard to not know, especially
I
if
know.
you're in the movie industry.
But
and
yeah.
the Jawas were kind of a big deal. Or no, I guess the Ewoks were, because people like hated the Ewoks. That's what I'm thinking of.
True, yeah. But another big thing about 1 and 5 specifically, why I think they're really good bookends, they each took like years to make. They would, like from a production standpoint, they would film on weekends with whatever time they had.
Right.
Like when you watch 1, you're almost watching those characters age a ton. And they shot so much material that didn't end up making the finished movie.
Yeah.
Because this was like a micro budget film.
Yes.
Don Coscarelli used funds from his father. His mother did special effects.
And he was 22 years old.
It's incredible. It is like an achievement and a half.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 35. I have not made a movie, and I have an iPhone. Like Don Coscarelli having a film camera back in 70, probably like 76 to 79, making this thing. It's like it, and being 22 is mind blowing.
Yeah.
But as a result, you do go like he probably did see bits and pieces of Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like when I'm 22, do I care, or am I like, that's a cool image, and
Right.
I want little like minions like that too?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I completely think that that's possible.
Yeah.
So after that, Mike decides to go to the funeral home / mausoleum to investigate and see what's up. And he sees the caretaker of the funeral home get killed by that thing that we were talking about before, that silver ball.
Yeah.
So it's showing like the long hallway of the mausoleum, and the silver ball comes flying down. It's the first thing you've seen like this, and lodges in the dude's head, drills into his skull, and starts shooting blood everywhere.
It's great.
So it's really sweet. So Mike is like,
Whoa!
And like keeps running and starts getting chased by the tall man because he sees him and he's like, oh, get out of here. Ah! Or whatever. And Mike is able to sort of escape from him until he like how does this end up happening? He is running away from the tall man. The tall man's reaching for him. Mike closes his hand in a door, and then wait, does he chop his fingers off?
He does.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So he chops the tall man's fingers off to get him to go away, and they just start spurting the most disgusting, like, yellow goo.
Yeah.
It's not red blood at all, obviously, but it's not even like yellow blood. It's like this, like, I don't know, thick, grainy looking stuff.
It's like a poorly mixed yellow paint.
Yeah, kind of. Or like if you were making mustard at home or something.
We can all relate to this.
There's like mustard.
Sounds like a euphemism. I'm making mustard. Occupado.
Like, somebody's in here. There's mustard powder.
Timmy's making mustard in there.
Mom, Timmy's been making mustard in there for like half an hour.
Wrap it up, Tim.
All right, Tim. Come on. All right, bud. Excuse me.
Okay.
It looks disgusting.
Yeah,
this
it does.
yellow stuff.
Right.
So naturally, Mike picks up one of the fingers and puts it in a little box to bring home to show Jody. To be like,
awesome.
What the hell is this? Like something's going on.
As proof.
Yes, absolutely. So, so he shows it to Jody, and they're going to bring it to the sheriff, but before they can, it turns into like a flying bug and starts harassing all of them.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's so bug nuts, like a severed finger turning into a flying, I don't know, like little bat monster thing. It's just something I've never seen before, It really is. It smacks of like real, like arcane, dark, magic-y.
Yeah.
The Alan Moore Swamp Thing comic books. I don't think we've really. Did we talk about this on our old show?
We didn't actually read them, but we've talked about them before.
So like they get into like really like bizarre dark magic. I remember there was an issue of the Alan Moore Swamp Thing where like a punk rock girl is attacked or something and her head gets chopped off, and then it's like a page and a half of you just watch the severed head roll and reshape, and it turns into a crow.
Oh, wow.
And flies off. And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is not rooted in any folklore I'm aware of. I have no idea. We just have to accept that this is a fact.
What is this?
Happened. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
And Phantasm is like that, where you just go like, all right, his finger's a bug.
Yeah, it's absolutely like that.
Yeah.
Like just all bets are off. Everything is weird. And
I want to celebrate that level of what is happening. Creativity.
Oh yeah, totally. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And this is also where Reggie comes in, who ends up being like the protagonist for the rest of the movies, it sounds like.
Ends up being a big deal.
He really is like a side character. He's just Jody's friend.
Yeah.
But he like comes over and witnesses the finger bug attacking everybody.
Yeah.
And now he's kind of in the mix. So Jody heads to the cemetery to kind of, I don't know, retrace their steps, see what's up. And there's small hooded figures again start chasing him away. And then he is like chased by a driverless hearse. He's like walking or running on the road, and then the hearse comes by and is like trying to get him, and they're like, there's no driver, but it's actually one of the shrunken little people, and it turns out that it is their friend Tommy, who died, whose funeral they went to kind of kick all of this off, and he is now shrunken and reanimated.
Which another incredible sort of like what is going on. Like Tommy was of average height, but now this hooded figure who's been chasing us, who we can tell is like 4 feet tall,
right,
is Tommy.
Yes.
What is going on? It is so strange.
Absolutely bizarre.
I think that I have in my notes. For one, I wrote about that area. I just wrote down, Reggie wants to stomp the shit out of the tall man. Did he say that? I want to stomp the shit out of him.
I don't know. Maybe.
It doesn't feel like just something I
no,
would
it
say.
doesn't. So he must have.
He must have said that. And then I wrote, Reggie is attacked or something. Like, I can't tell.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm looking at this point.
It's unclear what happens. But so at that point, Mike is like driving Jody's car, even though he's like 10 years old, and saves Jody. And, you know, they go off together or whatever. So Jody's like, okay, you're right. There's some like really crazy stuff going on. I've now seen it firsthand. You need to just kind of like bunk up with my two girlfriends who like work at or own an antique store.
I know, Sally and Susie.
Right. And like me and Reggie are going to go take care of business, but you're too young. You really shouldn't be exposed to this. And Mike's like, no, I wanna. But is at the store with the girls. And at the store, he sees a picture of the tall man at the antique store and is like, what the hell? I need to like make sure that Jody knows about this. Like, this guy's been around for a long time. And so he convinces the girls with it. It takes very little pushing, even though Jody was like, I need you to take care of my brother. He stays here. Mike is like, we need to go see Jody. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
And so they just take him.
Everyone takes everything in stride. When he sees that picture of the tall man, it's a photograph in a book that then comes to life.
Oh,
like, he's looking at it in the book and it becomes motion like a Harry Potter newspaper.
That's right.
And like, it's the tall man sitting on a horse and buggy hearse. So you know that he's from, like, you know,
back in the day,
the 1800s at least.
Right.
And it's just it's baffling. But his reaction to seeing this moving photo is just to be like, huh. So he's been around for a while. Like, everybody, when confronted with facts that shatter the world, like everything you thought was true, everyone's just kind of like, huh. Like, everyone's so laid back. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's very weird. So the gals take him over to see Jody, and when they're on the way, they see Reggie's overturned ice cream truck because Reggie's an ice cream man, and so they're like, no, Reggie. So they pull over, and then some of the little hooded figures come out and start attacking the girls, Sally and Susie, too. So now you're like, oh, man, they got Reggie already.
They got everybody.
Now they got everybody. It's really just Mike and Jody out here on their own. They're, like, all presumed dead. So Mike gets home, and Jody is like, just stay here. Like, you keep escaping. When I try to keep you safe, stay here, and locks him in his room. But Mike is able to escape, and when he comes out, and Jody's like, I'm going to get the tall man. I'm going to the mausoleum. You stay here. I'm going to
stop this.
And when Mike makes it out of his room, the tall man is there in their home, not where Jody is going to get them. And the tall man kidnaps Mike and drives him away in his hearse. But Mike goes like berserker and gets him to crash the hearse. And then he escapes. Mike is wily.
Mike, yeah, he really is.
You stick him with the ladies, he is out of there.
He's out, yeah.
You stick him in his room, he's out of there. You stick him in the hearse, he's out of there.
And that you're right that's like sort of the structure of the movie almost, of like Jody being like, no, you go here.
Right.
And then he doesn't stay there.
No.
Like, it's a little repetitive almost.
It is, yes. So, oh my God. I don't know if I was in a funny mood or if this is a typo. I wrote Jody's at the Mauzo.
The Mauzo.
Oh God. I can't.
I don't know.
I might have been feeling silly.
Cool, Chrissy.
I guess I was feeling
writing.
silly because I'm writing brother team all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whatever.
Okay, so Jody's at the Mauzo, and Reggie and Mike catch up with him somehow. I don't know how. And that's when they find the room that we were talking about. So there's this door with like a weird sculpture thing above it.
Yeah, like all faces, right?
Right. So they're like, well, let's investigate in there. And that's where they see the room where there are tons of black barrels like stacked up. Probably, I don't know, a couple dozen of them. And then the thing that they call the fork, which is like two metal poles, I guess you would say. And then if you were to cross through the poles, then you're going to the land where all of those like little guys are enslaved.
Yes.
So they see that and they're like, oh boy. Then there's a power surge and the three of them get separated and Reggie is almost sucked into the portal. So like basically like a wind starts blowing in the room.
Yeah, he touches both of the fork things, these two metal poles. He puts his hands on top of both of them and that seems to create some sort of
a wind,
a vacuum,
yes,
or something. Barrels are now getting sucked through the portal.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird. So he's he's trying to like fight against that, like on the ground, trying to get away. And then he is stabbed by the lady in lavender.
Yeah.
The tall man transforms again just for his pleasure.
Reggie on camera is stabbed in the tummy to death by the lady in lavender,
Right.
who then transforms back into the tall man.
Right, but like there was no purpose for the tall man. So again, I think sometimes he just enjoys that form.
I guess so.
So whatever, but
Sure.
it's just weird because before it was like, I'm doing this to get these dudes.
Yeah.
Right then, you would think that his priority wouldn't be on doing something that's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, just
it's
being
not
there.
necessary.
So I've heard that this is all something that happened in editing.
Okay.
Like the lady in lavender was supposed to be a separate person who sort of works for the tall man.
Oh, okay.
But then when they were compiling
makes
the
sense
movie,
then.
they were like, let's abbreviate this and we'll insert a shot that indicates visually she's the lady in lavender and then he's the tall man.
Right.
That's it.
I guess this might have been around the time where like there's like, the scary cross-dresser sort of thing.
I know, but I don't really get that.
No, but I wonder
of
if that
it.
has anything to do with the choice to make them the same person.
Oh, maybe.
Because
Yeah,
you
I
don't
know.
get they don't broadcast that sort of vibe where it's like this guy is scary because sometimes he's a woman
True.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if that has anything to do with the decision to have them be the same person rather than two.
Yeah.
Like it's supposed to be more scary in some way or
Interesting.
something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
true.
So Jody and Mike are able to get out of the mausoleum, and they devise this very Looney Tunes plan to get the tall man, where they're like, well, we can get him to fall down this, like, I don't know, shaft, like
Yeah,
hole in
like
the
a hole.
ground. Yeah. So, like Jody is standing by with like a bunch of rocks to put on him, and Mike's like, "Can't catch me!" And he's like running so that the tall man will run, not knowing that there's a hole there, and just fall into the ground.
Right.
Which is what happens.
It works.
It works, and then Jody puts a ton of rocks on him, and so we're like, oh, okay, great, the tall man is dispatched. But then Mike wakes up at home. So this is what we were talking about before. There's a lot of like dreamland versus what's real and whatever. So he wakes up at home, and Reggie tells him that Jody died in a car accident and that he'll take care of him now because also Jody and Mike's parents had passed away.
So now
and
Mike
so-
is on his own.
Right, but he's not because now Reggie will be his papa.
Suddenly, Reggie, who we just saw die, is alive.
Reggie is papa.
And Jody, who we just saw live, has died.
Right, and none of this has happened. He's just saying, Reggie's like, oh, the world is normal.
Yes.
There's
no tall
man. There's nothing scary, but your brother has
Your
died.
brother is dead, and I'm alive. He even says this line. I wrote it down. He wrote, I know I can't ever take Jody's place, but I'm sure as heck gonna try. Which I don't think is really the thing that people want to say. It's
Yeah.
not you're gonna take his place, and that's a good. It's like
No.
I can't ever take his place, but I'm gonna try to live up to
Yeah,
who
I'll
you need me to be.
take care of you.
Not I'll swap in. Like what he says basically is
I'll
like
tag in.
it'll be just as good.
Yeah. I'll give it my best shot.
Yeah.
And he's like, and you know what? Let's go on a little road trip, pal. So
Right.
whatever. So Mike goes upstairs to pack, and then the tall man appears in there, crashes through the mirror, and grabs Mike. And then the movie's over.
And that is exactly the ending of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh.
A few years later, where Nancy has defeated Freddy by being like, I'm not afraid of you, owning up to the fear. This movie is also about sort of like overcoming your fear. And then there's a sudden jump scare at the end where it's,
This movie's
Freddy-
about overcoming your fear, you feel?
Yeah, I think so.
In what way?
There's a trippy scene that we didn't even get into because it's just too bizarre, but he like visits an old lady.
Oh, God, yeah.
And she has him put his hand into a box,
that's
and there's
right.
fear in that.
That's right. I forgot
it's
about
very
that.
trippy. I think this is a
Yeah.
movie sort of
Yes. No, you're totally right. I completely forgot about that. So this old lady is like, put your hand into this box. And he does it. And I guess it seems like it's like grabbing him or hurting him or something like that. And then she's like, I'm paraphrasing, but she's basically like, let go of the fear or something. And when he does that, like anything that's grabbing his hand in there
It's gone.
released and he can take his hand out fine. And something similar happens when they go into that weird room and they see the forks with the other dimension. I think he puts his hand through because he doesn't know what it is yet. And am I remembering right? And he's like kind of sucked
something
in,
like that, yeah.
and then he kind of hears that woman's voice in his head, like let go of the fear, and he does, and he's able to back out.
Yes. So and I've heard all of that is ripped off from Dune, which
Okay.
I've never read or seen.
Me neither.
The David Lynch one or the new one.
Same.
But almost like verbatim taken. But so this movie is then about sort of like overcoming your fear, getting mastery of your emotions to survive something. But just like A Nightmare on Elm Street, which admittedly came later, it really ends with the revival of the villain who then rips a person through something. In the original Nightmare on Elm Street, it's Nancy's mom through a teeny tiny window in the front door, and it looks like an embarrassing puppet being dragged through a wall. In this movie, it is Mike through the mirror.
Yeah.
And in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, it's Connie Britton through a mirror. And I'm like, this is not where the comparisons to A Nightmare on Elm Street necessarily begin, and it's definitely not where they end. But this sort of like trippy, is it real, is it not real thing is just a constant.
Yeah. So I looked up some reviews at the time. I mean, this has a lot of good reviews now. It has, a good score on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. I want to see what Roger Ebert had to say about it, because it's always fun to see his horror reviews.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty short review. He did not like it, unsurprisingly. He gave 1.5 stars. But he had some nice things to say about it. He was like, it's creative, it's impressive that it was made, like we were talking about, with the budget that it had, and then the time amount, and with the director being 22. I thought there were a couple of funny things that he said in here. He says there's the tall man who makes John Carradine look plump.
What?
I guess John Carradine is a famously skinny person.
Makes John Carradine look plump.
And of the orbs, he says technology comes to vampirism or the Cuisinart lobotomy.
Oh my god.
I know.
Oh my god. Cuisinarts were probably like brand new.
Totally. Yep. Yep.
I took down some notes of analysis. This is from Wikipedia. Film scholar John Kenneth Muir describes the tall man as embodying childhood fears of adults and states that the tall man wins in the end because dreams are the only place where death can be defeated. And then Don Coscarelli had this to say, and I love this. So the director or the writer. I had a compunction to try and do something in the horror genre, and I started thinking about how our culture handles death. It's different than in other societies. We have this central figure of a mortician. He dresses in dark clothing, and he lurks behind doors, and they do procedures on the bodies we don't know about. The whole embalming thing, if you ever do any research on it, is pretty freaky. It all culminates in this grand funerary service production. It's strange stuff. It just seemed like it would be a great area in which to make a film.
Absolutely.
I love that, especially like a kid's mentality of these things. Like the language he uses here is like pretty simple. They do procedures on the bodies we don't know about. The older you get, the more you sort of have some understanding of what's going on. But as a kid, you might just be like,
what the hell's going on back there?
Yeah, they take the bodies and do something.
And then like grandpa looks weird.
And so from a child's perspective, not understanding in and of itself is a fear. And so he created something that we can't possibly wrap our heads around anyway.
Right.
So it's the not knowing that I think makes Phantasm really stand out. One of the things that I've said about like franchises before, like Saw, where I'm like, reboot this and make these elements work together. The pig mask, the missing piece of yourself, like the puppet, these all feel like these could be MOs of 3 different killers.
Absolutely.
Streamline. With Phantasm, arguably you could make the same point and be like, do this again, figure out the reason why this all gels and works together or something like that. But I almost want to be like, no.
I feel that way, that no. It's just, you could, but
no.
It's just so weird.
It's wonderful in its weirdness.
Exactly. That's part of what's cool about it.
I like not understanding.
Right.
The problem with the sequels is that you can only play the you'll never understand game for so long before you just go, well then, why am I here?
Yeah.
If we're going to do this for, what is that, like 6 hours?
Right.
Like, why do I need that
right.
then? Tell me I'll never understand, and that's the beginning and end of it.
Right. So what happens?
What happens?
What's going on?
I'll make the story as short as I possibly can.
You can even I'm almost imagining you just summarizing not beat by beat, but like what happens with all the rest of these? I know I'm supposed to cover 5,
Right.
and I can chime in, but
Yeah.
like, what the hell's going on after this?
Well, I'll tell you
Yeah,
in just a minute.
great.
Go to patreon.com/GTTUpod.
That'd be awesome.
Look up the tiers.
Yeah,
You get the deal.
got all kinds of stuff there. It's
Yeah.
awesome, and it supports the show. It helps keep the show going,
Super dope.
and it's super dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most recent things about the Easter Bunny. We watched clips of the Easter Bunny as a horror movie.
That's right.
And it was wildly enjoyable.
Yeah, it was a really
That's
good
out
one,
right
actually.
this second. Go there, sign up, check it out.
We'd love that.
We'd love that.
Patreon.com/GTTUpod. And thank you so much, existing patrons. You all rule. Okay. Wonderful.
Okay. All right. That was the
That was
alarm.
the- I
That was the
about
alarm to say stop talking about Patreon.
That's exactly what I was going to
All
say.
right. So let's talk about 2, 3, and 4. So 2, 3, and 4, as much as we've talked about Reggie being the main character, and that's true.
Yeah.
It's a loosely gradual process. Mike is really set up to be like the hero
The guy.
of the franchise, and the sequels seem to really try to make a case for like the Tall Man and Mike being like true nemeses for each other. Mike has something that the Tall Man specifically wants.
Oh.
You know?
What is that?
It's unexplained in the extreme. By the time that we get to, I think it's the end of 3, we find out the following. Those silver balls have brains in them.
Okay, this was a question of mine because yeah, like they're somehow referred. I think they're referred to as sentinels, right?
Yes, off and on.
Yeah, like they're like his little agents or something, but they didn't really put a fine point on it in the 5th one. So I was like, they're not just, I don't know, tools of his that he's somehow throwing in some.
They're not pure technology.
Right.
They have a miniature brain in them. So what he does, he takes the corpses, he shrinks them, he takes the brain out of them and puts them in a silver ball.
Oh.
The body itself does not have a brain.
Oh.
It functions on instinct in some sort, they make a claim. And the brain is in the sentinel. So what we see by the time the 3rd one ends, the Tall Man has a giant gold orb in his head.
Oh.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it can bash through the front of his face and fly out. It's really cool looking. Like
What?
they keep defeating
And for what purpose? Is that like the head
to
boss
survive. They may kill his body, but the gold orb in the Tall Man's head seems like it can fly out and go into another Tall Man body. And it can live on. There are like thousands of Tall Men. He is
okay.
He is like a many beings entity.
Okay.
He exists in countless dimensions.
Okay.
He is said to have conquered countless dimensions. Dimensions. And so he is almost like eternal because of this golden ball, I think.
Okay.
There are literally moments where, and they do this in all the sequels that I really enjoyed. They do the Saw thing of like revisiting the prior movie and like with great effort recreating the circumstances that the previous movie ended on.
I do like that a lot.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's
So,
really fun.
I think it's at the end of like 3. I have no idea anymore. Like I said, it's
happens.
whatever. They blow up the Tall Man. They
Okay.
explode him. And then another Tall Man steps out of a portal right beside it, picks up the other Tall Man's corpse and throws it through the portal. Like immediately. So
Right.
like the second that they defeated one Tall Man at the end of one movie, the next Tall Man stepped out and becomes the villain of the subsequent sequel. But he's all the
okay.
same guy.
Right, because he always has the same gold ball in his head, right?
Presumably.
Yeah.
They don't make that incredibly clear, but that does seem to be the case. It's all the
Okay.
gold ball that's in his head. Anyway, at the end of 3, Tall Man starts talking to Mike and being like, I'll save you from your flesh prison and you'll remember the things you've forgotten. So there's an implication here of being like,
you're from my land.
yeah. And then he reaches into Mike's head and pulls out a silver ball.
Oh, okay.
But Mike survives without the silver ball.
Oh, wow.
I have no idea. Anyway, that's like the grand battle between the two of them is some sort of ownership over Mike and
Okay.
some hinting that he is important to the tall man for something, and maybe they have a history together that we don't know.
Right.
Maybe Mike's not even real.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like maybe Mike is a constructed form for some purpose. I don't know. It's never explained. It's never delved into. It could be interesting, but they never do anything with it.
Yeah.
Instead, here's some crazy stuff. Phantasm 2 comes out in 1988. So it's been away for 9 years. Mike is played by a different actor in this movie and this movie only. Otherwise, it is the same original Mike for every other sequel. But where it's explained that Mike has been in a psychiatric facility all this time. Reggie is his caretaker.
Okay.
Mike is finally released from the psychiatric facility, and Reggie's like, it's going to be great. I can't wait to get you home. My family's there, my wife and my little daughter. They're going to love you. And as they drive up to the house, it explodes.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's why Reggie keeps asking for his family back in the fifth one.
But in the fifth one, the tall man goes, I can give you your family back.
Right,
your
but he
wife
won't-
and your daughter.
He will not give back Mike.
He goes, I can give them back to you as good as new. And Reggie says, I don't want your tricks. I wouldn't want the versions of them you'd give to me. I want my friends back. And so it really makes a case of like, Reggie's family has never been a character in this movie. I couldn't believe it. I had to rewind when he's like, yeah, my daughter's going to love you. And the house explodes. I was like, is that really? Like they did, because they didn't even cast performers for this. They just have it on paper.
Right.
He has a family. Weird. Now he doesn't. Spoiler alert, that family's like not even mentioned ever again until
Except
the
in
fifth
5,
one.
And he says, no, thank you.
When the filmmakers remember
Yeah.
that Reggie's beef with the tall man, his big beef, is not just that the tall man keeps stealing his friend. It's that he murdered his family.
Right.
It's so messy.
Yeah.
Messy boy.
Yeah.
So anyway, they go on a road trip. Most of the middle sequels are about road trips. They're always driving somewhere and encountering weirdos along the way. But I did like this.
Where does the Barracuda come in? Is this early on or later? 'Cause
Yeah,
definitely the Barracuda is a character in the fifth one.
Yes. So certainly in the first, Jody drives that thing, that car. In the first movie, and people really latched onto it as like an icon.
Yeah.
And so at some point, the filmmakers realized, well, like, some of what people seem to like about our movie is the car we had.
Right.
We should probably make that a really, really big deal.
Okay.
And so they do. Reggie's constantly, like wiping it with a diaper and stuff.
Yeah, right.
So at some point, it's revealed that Mike and a lady out there have a psychic connection. So they're trying to find Lady. I don't remember her name. She's
Okay.
Spoiler alert, she doesn't amount to anything
A hill of beans.
in this. Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
She's just sort of killed.
Okay.
But they end up finding her in the basement of a mausoleum, or of a funeral home. And he walks up to her, and a disgusting animatronic worm. She's like crouched in the corner, and a tall man worm pops out of her spine and turns and looks at Mike and goes, "You play a good game, boy. Come east if you dare."
Come east.
Come east. And I wrote down, there's like fairy tales.
Yeah.
Travel east?
Yeah, what does that mean?
And it turns out that was an apparition.
Oh.
That wasn't really her.
Oh, okay.
But the animatronic 100% looks like something from a Freddy movie.
Weird.
100%. It's like a little tall man face on a disgusting worm.
Yeah, I have seen. Actually, I've seen that image before.
That is like burrowed in her back. It is bizarre.
Yeah.
Absolutely bizarre. There's an iconic line in this movie where tall man. I kept just trying to write down like the rules of the tall man. They change all the time.
Yeah.
But he has great lines in this movie. He goes, "You think that when you die, you go to heaven. You come to us."
That's sweet.
And that's a great line.
Yeah.
Have
that
no
totally
idea
is.
what it means. But
Right,
the
but
implication,
it sounds really cool.
There is no heaven. There is no hell. It is
It's actually
all
this.
the tall man.
Yeah.
Either because you go to the tall man's realm as a spirit, or because he takes your body and turns you into a little slave of his and takes your brain and
Right.
puts it in one of his sentinel balls for his own use.
And
or
maybe he's
whatever.
not the only one.
maybe he's not the only one, but maybe he's also using, maybe there is no I with the tall man.
Right.
What I want to do, it's what we want to do. I am the tall man and we are many.
Yeah, right.
You know, there are thousands of him.
Right.
There is a straight up Evil Dead 2 shot in this movie where one of those silver balls is flying after somebody and punching through door after door after door, and it's all shot like a point of view.
Yeah.
So like Sam Raimi was like, you know, notable for his like pretty guerrilla and grungy filming style and just like putting his actors through hell. And so I straight up think that Don Coscarelli basically took one of his filming techniques for this movie.
Yeah.
And there is another reference deliberately to Sam Raimi in this film where I'm like, I bet they were friends. And I bet Don Coscarelli was like toying with style and wanted to do an Evil Dead 2 shot as an homage.
Yeah.
But it almost serves to sort of underscore again how intrinsically tied this movie's motives are to a franchise that did it better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Reggie does a chainsaw duel with a guy at one point that is kind of cool and a little Evil Dead-ish.
Yep.
He's doing his own stunts, which I think is a big deal.
Yes.
Bruce Campbell was known for doing his own stunts, and
Yep.
Reggie will continue to do his own stunts the entire time,
Yep.
basically. So you got to give him props for that, even if he doesn't
Totally.
do like pratfalls or have the comedy chops or whatever. And they do, they have a big montage when Reggie's sold in now. His house has exploded. His family's gone. Fine, I'll help you find the tall man.
Yeah.
They go and they raid a store for weapons. So they get like a ton of bullets and they make their own weapons. Reggie builds a double barrel shotgun.
Okay.
A quad barrel shotgun. 4 barrels on this big crazy looking shotgun.
Yeah.
He fires it once by the end of the movie and throws the gun away.
Weird.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
In the sequels, he has it. Because I think they realized, oh, that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
People
right.
liked that, and we did nothing with it. All right, bring it back.
Right.
Bring it back now.
Yeah.
The way they stop the tall man in this movie is that they put hydrochloric acid into embalming fluid, and then they stab that into the tall man.
Oh, okay.
It is disgusting and awesome. His eyeballs pop out of his face. He is melting. It is like a gore special effects. And this is not usually the thing that I'm all about or anything, but I was just like, it was cool looking. Like it was just like a feat of creativity to pull off. And then what's happening here? What did I write down here?
Hard to say.
Michael insists this is all a dream for some reason. Oh,
I mean, because it always is.
They teamed up with a woman named Alchemy, and Reggie did the do with her at about like the halfway mark of the movie. At the end of the movie, it turns out she was the tall man.
Oh, okay. See?
So Reggie got tall manned.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends. Reggie is sort of like attacked and thrown to the side, and
weird.
I have no idea.
By the 5th, he's the hero.
He's the hero. Phantasm 3 Lord of the Dead is in 1994. It begins with a flashback to both 1 and 2 with a ton of voiceover, and it feels like Terminator 2. Now it's like Reggie being like, we can never trust the things that we see. He's constantly trying to come and get us. And it feels like, you know, like what Sarah Connor would say, all this voiceover stuff.
Yeah.
And trying to use voiceover to explain everything.
Right.
But like
rather than have like clunky dialogue that explains the stuff. Like, we'll just be super overt about it and just say it.
Just say what it's supposed to be. But even by them writing it down and saying it to the audience, it's still not super clear.
Right.
They're like, we constantly have to find him, and he's constantly after us. It's like,
Like,
oh,
okay.
which is it? You know, like I can't tell what's going on.
What does that mean?
It's a little bit more comedic. Reggie like will point the double barrel shotgun over his shoulder and act nonchalant as somebody starts to like crawl toward him on top of like in a tree or something. Then he'll pull the trigger and shoot him out of the tree. He knew the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's a little more like silly.
Tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah. Reggie considers blowing himself and Michael up to prevent the tall man from taking Michael.
Okay.
So he's like, I'll kill us both.
Yeah.
So that you can't take Michael. And the tall man goes, fine, then I'll wait until I come back. Take good care of him, Reggie.
What?
And leaves. So the tall man wants Mike, but like it's weird that the whole setup here is that like Yeah, now Reggie is even more important, and he's like meant to be watching over Mike.
Yeah,
so
right.
that nothing bad can befall him from the tall man, which is weird.
So it's just like a lot of near misses with the tall man, as you would think.
Oh, 1,000 near
Basically.
misses with the tall man. 1,000. Jody is back in this movie.
Okay.
He is a spirit that can present himself physically. There, he can be like,
Yeah, because Jody's in the fifth one.
he is. He's a silver ball.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we start to get the idea that the silver balls might be people in a way, but he's the only human that we see who can like become a silver ball and back again. And again, everybody has zero reaction to what's going on. At one point, Reggie sees Jody and goes, this is a line. I wrote this down. It's in quotes. He goes, Jody, what are you doing here? You're dead. So like the first time that he's seen him,
right,
and his friend's been dead forever.
It's somewhat par for the course,
but that is dream logic.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like if
you
anybody's
just accept things.
Yeah, if anybody's like lost a loved one, you might have the dream where they show up at your house,
right?
And you go, but how are you here?
Yeah,
it's just weird to see it in a movie.
It is
where you don't know if it's meant to. Is this literally supposed to be? I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
certainly.
They end up finding out that there are these abandoned towns. The tall man is almost said to be going from like place to place to place to place, emptying the graveyards, killing people, and amassing an army.
Right.
And yet, they're like, no one would ever believe us.
Well, I mean, if there are enough things, they probably will.
You'd think that this would be all over the news already.
Well, by the fifth one, like, people believe. You know, like we're living under a tall man regime by the end of this franchise.
That is very, very true.
Yeah.
They find a house with graves out front in the front yard with like, you know, rudimentary sticks making crosses. Turns out that there's a little kid living in that house alone. He's one of the sole survivors of this town, and he's rigged the house with booby traps just like Home Alone.
I would say.
But these booby traps kill you. So like every single booby trap is to kill a person. He calls them something. He gives them a name. They're scavengers or something like that. So he kills anybody that comes to mess with him, this kid, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Mike is taken away by the tall man. Reggie teams up with this little kid, Tim. They meet a woman named Rocky, and now the three of them are sort of like a little unit trying to find Mike. At one point, Reggie is trying to be a skeevo. He makes Tim sleep in the car. He gets one hotel room with one bed for him and Rocky.
Oh, come on.
And he tries to make a move on her. So finally she like relents, annoyed, and she puts handcuffs on him.
And leaves him.
Oh, okay. And then leaves him so she can get some sleep.
Nice. Good move, Rocky.
I kind of liked.
Yeah.
So now we're redefining some of the lore here. The tall man has those little people. They work for him in the other world, and they can do some like scavengery stuff here. But he's also got zombie, regular-sized, average-sized humans called gravediggers because he needs somebody that is fully able-bodied to dig up the corpses for him. So he does have like sort of like Evil Dead-ish zombie people.
Right.
Some of the people who attacked that little kid Tim recur in this movie constantly. You can never stop them. They'll pop up again, even with like bullet wounds in their faces and stuff to get Reggie. They now work for the tall man.
Okay.
I wrote zero idea what's happening. Zero. It's all.
I mean.
Zero. I wrote it's all meandering, and then Jody's ghost goes into Reggie's dreams, where Reggie is doing it with Rocky. They save Mike within a dream, and then it happens in real life. Yeah, I remember this now. So they save Mike in a dream. When they wake up, he's there with them.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That worked.
Yeah, I guess so. Whatever. The tall man reaches through a portal, and they close the portal, and it chops the man's hands off. The tall man's hands run around like in Evil Dead 2. Then the three Ravagers, that's what they're called, come back as laughing zombies. They do an awesome hearse flip. They flip a hearse like in a big car stunt.
Yeah.
They flip this thing like 15 times, and it's unbelievable looking. They decide all of a sudden in this movie that the tall man's weakness is cold. They do a flashback to the first movie where he was walking past Reggie's ice cream truck and has some sort of reaction.
Yeah, right. And so they just like latch onto it.
In that movie, we couldn't tell if he liked it, if he was like, yum, yum, ice cream.
Yeah, or
he was
like
oh,
boo, me cold.
Cold
and they
will
decided
kill
to go
me.
with boo, me cold.
Correct. So here they use cryogenics to kill the tall man. They decide that he's been creating an army to conquer worlds. Zombie lady tries to sneakily seduce Reggie.
Okay.
I don't know, whatever. Tall man will free Michael from his flesh prison. Jody says a line that I think is like the thesis of this series. They like can't believe what's going on with Michael, who's got an orb in his head. By the end of this movie, he has got like orbs for eyes, which is kind of trippy. Cool. And Jody, trying to explain this, goes, seeing is easy. Understanding takes a little more time.
Yeah, well, we've invested like
a lot of time.
A lot of time in this. To that end, I think we should probably speed through the rest of this.
Oh God.
We gotta. Partially for time for the podcast, but also
for you.
Yes.
Okay. Phantasm 4 Oblivion. Well, the tall man pops up at the end of that one and goes, "It's never over." All right,
Clearly.
Anyway. Phantasm 4 Oblivion 1998. I wrote down boring. This is the worst one in my opinion. They have a ton of unused footage from Phantasm 1. Their goal is to use that and construct a movie around doing flashbacks. Okay, there's a lady who Reggie tries to sleep with, and in the morning, her boobs are replaced with silver balls.
That's kind of awesome.
It is explained that tuning forks can destroy orbs.
Oh,
so Reggie can tap a tuning fork, and the sound vibrations will burst an orb. Never used again. Here's where we get...
That's so stupid. They should all have tuning forks instead of guns.
Yes. That's explained by there being footage from the original where Reggie is using a tuning fork to tune a guitar or something and play music.
Yeah, he shows off his chops in both movies.
He keeps singing songs. It's a little bit of an ego piece.
Yeah.
Just let Reggie sing a song, whatever. He keeps sacrificing his body for your movies, whatever.
Look, he'll be happy.
Here's where we get Jebediah Morningside a lot. We find out that Jebediah, or Jedediah, I thought, whatever, who cares, from a long time ago, was married to that old psychic lady who we talked about from the first one. So they're both sort of interdimensional beings in a way. And he's a terrible actor.
Okay.
Angus Scrimm.
Yeah,
I want to talk about him very briefly. Great look.
Yeah.
Great intensity to his face. He's known for just going, boy.
Yes.
And it being intimidating and weird. But once he's Jebediah Morningside and he's supposed to be like, let me get you some tea. What can I get for you? He's got like 5 lines in a row. Yeah, Mike travels back to the past, and when he sees him, he's like, oh, goodness, I didn't see you there. Can I help you? Where are you from? Do you want some tea? What's going on? Like, everything has the same cadence. And then he goes, oh, did you come through the dimensional fork? And you're like, whoa!
Yeah.
He knows about
he gets it.
So he was an inventor who opened a gateway. Technology yielded all this, I wrote. But to what end?
Yeah, why? Yeah.
I have no idea.
So 4 is where we get kind of the backstory.
4 is where we get a little bit of the backstory. But again, it doesn't necessarily amount to much. And it ends again with just sort of like more questions in a way. They just sort of get away.
Right.
And we're left with this hint of like there's more to come. And there are multiple tall men. And this isn't over yet.
It never will be.
Which is kind of a shock because that movie came out in 1998. And then we get Phantasm Ravager, which came out in like 2018.
Yes. So like 20 years later.
It's astounding how confident they are to end it. Like as a writer, maybe I've got the wrong impulse here. Maybe I should be leaving everything on a cliffhanger. Everything. Listen, barely a day goes by that people don't ask me for more Blackwood. And that does end with a heaping of uncertainty.
That's true.
So maybe that is a good thing. Who knows? But I feel like I want to like categorically make a statement and end something.
Yeah.
But
it's satisfying. But
it is.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Because it's incredible that they went another 20 years and then got to Ravager.
Absolutely. So Ravager... I mean, it's more of the same like dream versus real life thing and which is which. So Reggie now is in like a home basically, and Mike is visiting him.
He's an old man.
Right. And it's going back and forth between him kind of like waking up in the home like, whoa, and him, I don't even know if you would call it falling asleep, but just sort of being thrown into this other world.
So this, I think, is actually kind of clever, even though it rides the line of taste, but it might have just been their vantage point. 5 is less about literal dreams and more about the aging process and what happens if you are somebody who is becoming unstuck in time via, like, dementia.
There's definitely a very sad read of it.
There
like,
is.
At one point, he is in the home and he sees basically like a rip in the world where there are bad guys. It's not even the tall man. It's like a bad guy with a gun or something like that. And I guess Reggie somehow gets hands on his gun and turns around, and who had been like nurses and doctors are now bad guys who are coming to attack him, and he like shoots all of them. And I thought that it was going to go back to like normal world, and it's going to show that he has somehow attacked these people because he thought that they were these enemies from the other world, but it actually doesn't do that.
No.
It is the other world. And so what you would need to take away from this is that there's a world in which the tall man is ruling everything, and now there are people who are like on the ground wanting to fight the tall man, who are kind of like underground revolutionaries or something. And so they are going to work together with Reggie and Mike and Jody to try to defeat the tall man. And it ends on you're right, another cliffhanger where they're all in the Barracuda, they're driving away, but there are gigantic sentinels, those silver ball things, like hanging in the air. Like this is just the environment that they're in. So
like the size of planets now.
Yes. So it just gives the impression that this is ongoing.
The entire world has been taken over and corrupted. I really, I kind of, in a weird way, am fascinated by and like 5, and think that it works really tidily with 1. The idea of 1 being about nightmares.
Yeah.
And this being about sort of like the end of your life.
Right.
And almost like a power fantasy in a way of like, well, I'm trapped in this room. What if I were the most important person on the planet and I was the one needed to fix everything?
Right.
So like it easily you could read it as, somebody who has lost all agency trying to imbue themselves with power again.
Yeah.
Or you can take it at face value in Phantasm rules and go, okay, we're going into the Terminator 2 future.
Yes.
Where we all fight against Skynet, and Skynet is silver balls in the air and the tall man still.
Right.
There's a scene in the movie where Reggie wakes up in a bed in the hospital, and Angus Scrim is in another bed right beside him. Old man.
Yes.
Even older Angus Scrim. Angus Scrim died just before this movie could come out. He lived long enough to make these movies for 40 years.
Yeah.
And he was in that first movie considered to be like an old guy.
Yeah.
It's like incredible that they did that. But Angus Scrim in the movie in a bed implied to almost be the real Angus Scrim. Or is it Jebediah Morningside? Is it just an old man that Reggie has turned into his, because he sees him in the room. He's now bigged him up to be the grand
he's
villain.
kind of projecting.
Angus Scrim in the other bed goes like, oh, hello. He goes, I think that they bring us to this room to die.
Yeah.
And genuinely,
no, it was a cool scene.
It's a cool scene.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of like guts or dedication, at least, to wanting to tell an honest story or your craft, or to confront your own not livelihood in terms of job, but like your own mortality, because Angus Scrim wouldn't make it out of this one alive.
Right.
And it's pretty amazing to see somebody who's toward the end of their life being like, I think I'm here to die.
I feel that way too. I know that there have been other things that I've watched, and I can't think of what at all right now, where there have been similar things. And I think it's really cool.
Brave.
Yeah, and brave.
The Log Lady in Twin Peaks season 3.
That definitely is what I'm thinking of.
It's absolutely incredible. Margaret Coulson.
Mm-hmm.
It's just incredible. And it's a dedication to what you're doing. And like, even if you think Phantasm 5 Ravager isn't good,
right? That
30 seconds of Angus Scrim is like an artist, like using their own reality to tell a story for themselves. I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting.
No, I did too.
Yeah.
So honestly, the story could live on.
Yeah, I guess so.
See. It doesn't. I gotta say, it doesn't seem like people are clamoring for it.
No.
There's obviously, a fan base that's really strong for Phantasm. But, well, I mean, you never know. You never know.
You never know.
Right.
You never know. There's a moment where they bring there's a little person performer in the movie who I think is here primarily so that they can be like, we've tried to say that little people are scary for 40 years.
Right.
Can we give somebody...
Yeah,
like,
he's a hero.
Yeah, he's a hero. But they give him the worst kinds of lines. They gave this guy, like, all those, like, action movie cliche kind of lines. He says at one point to the tall man, he goes, "Hey, little guy, where the fudge do you think you're going?" Like, he's going to be the badass to stop the tall man, but nobody can ever stop the tall man.
Right.
But the way that it ends, again, feels derivative.
Yeah.
The end of Ash versus Evil Dead. Did you watch that show?
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch the whole
No, I
schlemiel?
didn't. No.
So the way that the way that series ends is that Ash wakes up and it's the future. And it's like, it seems like it's like hundreds of years in the future.
Uh-huh.
And a bunch of like badass post-apocalyptic warrior people are like, he's up. Get the car. And he like suits up in future tech or whatever, and they're like, we're gonna finish the fight.
Yeah.
And he drives off into a deadite post-apocalypse war zone.
Yeah.
And this movie,
Yes.
Phantasm 5 Ravager, is Jody, Reggie, and Mike in the Barracuda in the future, battleified, being like, it's time for us to stop this, boys. And they
Yeah.
drive off.
Weird.
It's just incredible how like beat for beat this is.
Yes.
Still,
Yes.
40 years on, meaning that Don Coscarelli's like in his 60s and is still somewhat cribbing
Right.
from Evil Dead is almost incredible. In your 20s, that makes a certain amount of sense. You can
Right.
be-
Because it's not like it hasn't been pointed out to him by this point.
Yeah. You can be inspired by something. You can homage something. You can try to do a spiritual recreation of something.
Yeah.
But this is like arguably he's friends with Sam Raimi.
Uh-huh.
It's just weird.
It is. It definitely is weird.
But that's how you take an ice cream man friend in the first movie and turn him into the hero.
That's-
Is you just insist that he is.
Right. You just tell everybody he is repeatedly.
Yes.
It's so weird. So that is Phantasm, everyone.
From soup to nuts.
That's absolutely right. So I think we both recommend the first one
Yeah.
and maybe not anything else.
I do like the fifth one. I
Okay.
don't know if I'd recommend it. There's a lot of like digital ugliness.
Yeah.
Like it's not even directed by Don Cross.
No.
It's the only one not directed by him.
Yep.
Which is bizarre.
Yeah, it's written by him and produced by him still, but it's not directed by him.
And it feels like a movie where they were like, well, special effects have gotten so good. You'd be amazed what we can do these days.
Right.
And it looks so much worse.
Definitely.
I'm not a purist of like, no CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Only, real effects or whatever. Only practicals.
Yeah.
But when you look at Phantasm 5 Ravager, you're like,
It's a pretty good argument for just doing practical effects.
dangle a silver ball from a string, everybody, because this looks bad.
Definitely. So that is it, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed it. Please go to patreon.com/gttupod if you're able to support the show and you enjoy it, because it absolutely keeps us going. It makes a humongous difference. And we have a number of different tier options where you can get up to a bonus episode every single week. So it's really awesome. And thank you so much, everybody who's already over there. And I also want to say, in 2 weeks, if you're listening to this live, we are going to be at the Jersey Devil Fable Festival in Asbury Park, New Jersey. It's free. You can just walk up, and we're going to be doing a live show there. So that we're going to be there on Saturday, May 7th, and we really hope to see some of you there.
Yeah, I would love to see you there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It seems like there's like a big beefy schedule of stuff going on.
Yes.
And we're happy to be a part of it. So come out to see us. Come out to see anybody. We'll have a good time.
Absolutely.
You can follow us online. We are at GTTUpod on all social media. Keep up to date with what we are doing. I have a new website where I'm going to be posting some of my... I'm hoping to have that be sort of like where I post anything new that I'm developing. And even just like an archive of all my writing and shows that I've done over the years. It is willrogers.live.
Nice.
So you can go over there. You can subscribe so that you can stay up to date every time I post something. And you can also follow us online.
Yep, I'm at Chillin' Kristen.
I am at The Myth Traveler. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us and trying to parse out what this was.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And undeniably, there's probably 1,000 things that we did not touch on because how could we possibly? We'll be back next week for more of something, but none of this. Until that time comes, we must travel.
Back to the netherworld, go we.
Back to the tall man's universe.
That's right, with hopefully no sentinels following us.
Ooh, with any luck.